We're here because free speech is under attack. We're here because people are being convinced that socialism works. We're here because people are being judged guilty until proven innocent. We are fighting back with facts. This is not a safe zone, so buckle up, Buttercup. This is the raw, naked truth.
Welcome to the Raw Naked Truth. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin. We're now over a year and a half into the COVID-19 pandemic, and there's still a lot of misinformation out there. So we're going to sit down and clear up some of the confusion. Now, let's start with what is the difference between coronavirus and COVID-19. Very often, these two terms are used interchangeably, but they're not the same thing. Coronavirus is a class of virus. COVID-19 is part of that class. The flu virus that occurs every year is also a coronavirus. SARS and bird flu are examples of coronavirus. It is a large category of viruses. COVID-19 is a specific virus within the coronavirus family. COVID-19, as of this recording, has 7 variants, with the Delta variant being the one most people are familiar with. These variants occur because viruses mutate in order to survive, and we'll touch on that more shortly. Another piece of confusion is how vaccines work. People are under the impression that the vaccine kills the virus. Vaccines don't work on any virus directly. Vaccines work by training your immune system to be able to resist the virus. While this can kill some viruses, it doesn't necessarily kill all of it. Viruses have different loads, and the larger the load, the more of the virus you have. When you have a large load, your immune system does not kill off all of it. What the vaccine really does is boost your immune system so that if the virus infects you, your immune system can fight it off. You can still get COVID, but your immune system is better prepared for it. With a prepared immune system, your body can fight off all or most of the effects of the virus. Your immune system will kill some of the virus load, but not necessarily all of it. As we just said, vaccinated people may not suffer any effects from the virus, but they can still carry and spread the virus. Very often I hear the comment, but vaccines killed off polio. Well, this isn't actually true. Polio still exists, but so many people are vaccinated that if you're exposed to polio, it doesn't affect you. That doesn't mean that polio isn't there. So, should you get vaccinated? For the vast majority of people, the answer is yes. That doesn't mean there aren't any risks. Every medication, drug, vaccine, etc. has side effects. These side effects usually only affect a very small percentage of people. But here's the problem with the COVID vaccine data. There are 2 factors that make it different from vaccines like the polio vaccine or the MMR vaccine that people are familiar with. The first is that the vaccine was developed very differently. Historically, vaccines are developed by growing weakened versions of viruses. From those weakened viruses, the vaccines are developed. In many cases, weakened or dead viruses are part of the vaccine, allowing your body to develop immunity to it without being affected by the disease. When a weakened or a dead virus is put into your body as part of a vaccine, your immune system works the same way it would as though it were live, except the weakened or dead virus cannot create any of the effects of the live vaccine. So you're getting the immunity without actually getting the disease. The COVID vaccines were not developed this way, although there are new vaccines being developed using this method. COVID vaccines target the virus's RNA. This is a much newer method of developing vaccines, and these are the first vaccines ever to use it. This method allowed us to develop vaccines much faster. And there are two downsides to this. First, as COVID mutates, the RNA changes. This is why the vaccines are less effective against variants than they are the original strain of COVID. That doesn't mean they're not effective. It just means that the effectiveness varies between mutations. They still offer protection against every mutation, just in various degrees. Additionally, though, there are people who cannot take the vaccine because of other medical conditions. This actually came to light with NFL player Aaron Rodgers. The NFL star revealed that his doctor informed him that because of the way the vaccine was developed, it was riskier for him to take the vaccine than not. And this is not unusual. In traditionally made vaccines, people with egg allergies often cannot take the vaccines because the viruses are grown in eggs. The other drawback is that traditional vaccines, medications, etc., are developed over a much longer period of time. These vaccines were developed quickly out of necessity. Because of that speed, there is no long-term data. There may be side effects that occur over time. This is not unusual, but it needs to be taken into account. Again, this is not unique to COVID vaccines. The medication thalidomide was thought to be a wonder drug until it was given to pregnant women and was found to cause birth defects in their children. This is why many people are wary of taking the vaccine. While the data we have is positive, there is a lot of data that we don't have. The average medication takes 20 years from the time it's discovered to the time it reaches the market. COVID-19 did not allow for this kind of time. No medication or vaccine is perfect. People have to make the decision to get vaccinated or to vaccinate their children for themselves with input from their doctors. So the next question that comes up is, what is natural immunity? Well, natural immunity occurs when someone is infected by the virus. Their immune system learns from its exposure to the virus. It's important to remember that everyone's immune system is different. Different people react to vaccines and to exposure to the virus differently. You will get different levels of protection from each based on how your immune system reacts. According to research done in Israel, on average, natural immunity is 13 times stronger than what the vaccine delivers. Now, obviously, no one wants to get COVID-19, but if you have gotten it, your immunity against it is greatly increased. This does not mean that you are completely immune if you have gotten COVID-19. It does decrease your risk of catching it, and it increases your body's ability to fight it off if you do catch it. So that's natural immunity. Now let's talk about masks. Masks have been promoted as a way to stop the spread of COVID-19. The truth of the matter is, this is dependent on the mask you use. Many masks actually have warnings on their boxes that they are not good for stopping infection. There are 3 types of masks that are very good at stopping infection, and these are N95 masks, KN95 masks, and surgical masks. There's a simple test that you can do to see if the mask you have is useful. Place the mask over your face, making sure to completely cover your nose and mouth. Take an aromatic. This can be an essential oil, spices, flowers, etc. Anything with a strong aroma. Hold the aromatic near your face. If the mask blocks the smell, it is effective against COVID. The reason this test works is that your sense of smell works when molecules of the object that you're smelling hit your olfactory nerve in your nose. If the mask can block those molecules, they can block the virus. These masks don't just block COVID, they block other viruses and bacteria as well. Now, this is good and bad. It keeps you from being affected by those viruses and bacteria. However, as we discussed earlier, your immune system works by encountering viruses and bacteria and learning to handle them. If your immune system does not encounter them, it doesn't learn to fight them. So masks also reduce our general immunity. We have to take this into account. Finally, how do variants occur? Viruses mutate in order to survive. When bacteria and viruses encounter something that can kill them, they mutate to protect themselves. A perfect example of this is the antibiotic-resistant strains of bacteria that have been all over the last several years. Those bacteria evolved to survive the medications that were developed to treat them. There has been a lot of misinformation that COVID has mutated because of the unvaccinated people. This is incorrect. Viruses mutate and evolve based on environmental factors, and they evolve when they come up against treatments that can eliminate them. It has nothing to do with vaccinated or unvaccinated. The flu virus mutates every year. That's why you need a different shot every year. Researchers attempt to target parts of the virus that don't mutate when they develop vaccines and medications so that they're still effective despite the mutations. All right, so where do we go from here? Well, right now there are 3 vaccines that have been shown to have fading effects. Booster shots have been recommended. There are at least 2 more vaccines being developed. These newer vaccines have been developed by more traditional means and are undergoing clinical trials. There are also 3 medications in pill form that are in clinical trials. The results of the vaccines and medication trials are all very promising. But as more data comes in, that's when the FDA will look at it and make a determination if they should be cleared for general use. Now, the FDA clears things in 2 ways. It can clear a medication or vaccine for emergency use. That means they're not going through all of the data in an effort to get the vaccine or medication out as fast as possible. These come with higher risks, but the FDA still examines the data that says if it is safe. Then they have a more general approval. That takes a lot longer, it's a lot more stringent, and they go through all of the data. Now, when data is submitted to the FDA, it's for specific audiences. So just because a medication or a vaccine is declared safe and effective for adults doesn't mean it's safe and effective for kids. That has to go through a separate review. Same thing for people with medical conditions. Just because it's safe and effective in healthy people doesn't mean it's safe and effective for people with pre-existing conditions or for pregnant women. These are all different data sets, and the FDA has to go through each one of them separately. That's why approval takes so long. While the infection rate is spiking again, the death rate continues to fall. So when all is said and done, we will come through this and we will move forward. That's the raw, naked truth. It is time to stop being terrified of COVID. It's not completely under control. It may never be completely under control. It is expected, in actuality, to end up being something like the seasonal flu, where we will require another shot or medication every year. We deal with the flu that way. We'll be able to deal with COVID that way. It's not something to be afraid of. We're going to be taking a few days off to enjoy the Thanksgiving holiday. We hope all of our listeners have a healthy and happy Thanksgiving. And remember, you can catch us as well as the rest of the Xvadio Podcast Network at xvadio.com/podcasts, as well as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts. Have a healthy and happy holiday. We'll see you when we return.